Should probably not eat something crunchy with a microphone.
No. I'll edit this out. Okay. Well, give the people some history. Where did you start teaching?
Started teaching in Illinois,
At
the Midwest Horseshoe School, by accident. I was finishing my apprenticeship with Steve, and that's the school that I went to.
Mhm.
A few years before that, was in a different location, at a different location.
Yeah.
And then somebody else bought that school, and they moved to the location that it was before. At that time, I was transitioning out of my apprenticeship, and then he asked me if I could teach for a year until he found a what are you doing? Because you're eating. Until he could find an instructor, and then showed up. Never thought I would do this. I showed up to teach the first class. I had no idea.
Mhm.
Like, it's not that I had time to transition into teaching. It was like we finished shoeing horses one day. The next day, I'm moving to the school to start class the following day. So there was not a whole lot of prep.
And how many students did you guys take them?
At that time, I think we'd take up to 16. But we would have 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It was raw. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But then we show up the first day. I'm looking at all these people. I'm like, okay, now what? I was pretty comfortable with the anatomy stuff, but I didn't know how I was gonna teach the forging portion of it, and what I had to teach, because having gone through school, and when I did my apprenticeship, like I learned which schools are not supposed to. Unfortunately, schools do not produce farriers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We produce apprentices.
Yeah.
If that. It's sad. We should be producing farriers, but we don't have enough time.
Yeah.
And there is not enough financial support, because if you want to have a longer program, you have to charge more. But then an 18-year-old wouldn't be able to pay what tuition is, and then not able to get student loans.
There's no accreditation.
It's a whole different conversation. If the profession was a little bit more regulated, we probably would be able to have better farrier programs.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I was like, well, what am I going to teach? So the forging portion, like the whole practical portion of the program, became what I used to do at night in the shop after working all day. It was my practice at night. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, if you worked for me, you ought to work for these people. I don't think people realize what they're signing up for when they sign up for horseshoeing school. Especially in our program, they don't realize how hard, how heavy on the bookwork we are. But then we eliminated, like, we don't have these shorter programs anymore. And our program is tailored to. It is very basic. We don't teach anything fancy. We teach them how to be apprentices if they can get that far.
Yeah, because how many people, like the ostrician? What is the word I'm trying to say? Ostrician rate?
Attrition rate.
Attrition rate.
Yeah.
Is really high. Like.
Well, not really the attrition rate as much as not everybody completes the program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether that means something or not is different, right? Because, like, we had people that got kicked out, or people that didn't pass, and like, oh, we went to Montana State. Yeah, but you didn't graduate.
Yeah.
And then we don't tell people that we certified. They don't get certified. Mm-hmm. We make sure first days we have no control certification. This is a certificate program, but it's a certificate through Montana State. You got a certificate of completion if you graduate from the program. But you can make it up to the end of the program and not graduate, which most people do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty low graduation rate, about 30 to 40%.
Was it higher, like 10 years ago?
I think so. I think so. I think 10 years ago, well, the demographic of students have changed.
Yeah.
Has changed. Like this class now, saw how many girls we have in the class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I mean, us against girls shooting horse. Just look around.
Yeah.
Right, but it's a different way to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Right, back when I went to school, my class were all guys and one girl,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all older. When I say older, we were mid-20s. Right. It was easier to teach back then than it is now. And I don't think it's entirely the students' fault. I don't think so. I think the whole education system has failed them.
Yeah. Like starting from kindergarten?
Yeah. Yes. Well, and in parenting too.
Yeah.
Right. So these kids, I think most of the kids, they show up, they never had anything expected of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they show up to the program, and then we expect things. We expect them to try. Like we were saying the first day. We got to try, and then we'll go from there. But they never had any level of expectation. And then their attention span is very short. And most of the people are incapable of comprehending what they read. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They are not illiterate. They know how to read. They just don't know what they read. And that takes a minute to change their, and that's the part of the program that I like the most, because that I don't like a whole lot, because you have this whole gap that you need to bridge, but you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Because how can I make up for, I don't know, all these kids' years of high school in 12 weeks?
Yeah.
Like, would I like to have a longer program? Yeah, nobody would be able to afford it. Because we are part of Montana State, but we are a self-sufficient program. So you need to run it like a business. So we don't compromise on the content of the program, but it's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you miss one day of class, you're miles behind.
Yeah. Do you think that, like, 10 years ago, there was just a lot more, like, discipline and motivation? Like, nobody really is, like, motivated to do anything anymore?
I don't know if motivation is the right word. I think it's more related to they miss the forest for the trees, right? Like, they want it now.
Yeah.
So you show them how to build a shoe. I don't know, like this week, my first week of class, we were working welding clips, nail holes, right? And some kids are pulling something that looked like a clip.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the idea is that it should get better as you progress in the program. So you got to keep doing it. But what I see a lot is that, okay, I pulled something that looked like a clip, and it's like, oh, I know how to do it, and they stop. Versus, how can I perfect this? So I think it's more of a matter of grit than motivation. And then the first sign of hardship they find, they just quit.
Yeah.
They just give up. They get frustrated. They get in their heads and they give up. And I think that's part of the problem. And that's why we joke around saying the learning curve and stuff in the beginning, it's all great, and then they start hating it. And then they start liking it again. They go up and down because the level of expectation goes up. You know, and then we get criticized a lot, especially, you know, some local people criticized us before. Like, you have first of all, you have to build their confidence up.
Yeah.
In order to be able to teach them. So if you have a student that, I mean, this kid, they all start the same, but they all learn different from each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I don't know, let's say you and Dagner are in class, and then you're struggling to trim a foot. It's your battle is to get this foot trimmed. Dagner might be trimming good, stuff like that, but by Friday, you were able to trim a foot.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be great, but you completed a task. If I come up to you and say, "Hey, Lizzie, this trim sucks. It's shit. You got to do this." So I just went down and retrimmed the foot. What would that do to your confidence?
Yeah.
You just be, "Oh, I did it, but I really didn't do it because he had to redo the whole thing." But versus, okay, now you know that you can trim. Now tomorrow I can start nitpicking.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, let's talk a little bit about this dressing. Let's talk a little bit about your knife work. Let's talk a little bit about flattening. But you got to build their confidence up. Now, if you have somebody that's overconfident, then you got to break them down first so you can build them back up. And that's when you put them under a bad horse, let the horse teach them, and then you build them back up.
Yeah.
But when you have people that are struggling, they need to first believe that they can do it. Because if they don't believe they can do it, they're not learning. You can be as picky as you want. They're not going to learn. Like with forging. Like this week, there was some students that were struggling with welding, right? They finally got the metal to stick. Am I going to go up there and say, "Oh, your seam sucks"?
Yeah.
I mean, this kid has a smile from year to year because he was able to get it to stick. Now, Monday, I say, "Hey, let's talk about this a little bit." And then you build them up. And that's how, and I think that's how they learn. Versus, I cannot expect them to. You know, that people criticize school shoe jobs, but the shoe jobs, they get better as the students stay in the program longer.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole point of a horseshoeing school. As long as it's not detrimental to the horse, it's fine, right? But these feet are going to be slightly longer than normal. Yes, it's safe. If you're teaching people how to drive nails, first week of class, they're learning how to drive nails. Damn right, I'm going to leave these feet long.
Yeah.
It's a $40 shoe job. These horses have been trimming in 6 months. Being a quarter inch long, it's better than being an inch and a half long. You know? But you want to be safe.
Yeah.
You want to be safe. It's difficult.
How do you think that the difference in students that you're getting now versus 10 years ago is going to affect the trade in 10 years?
Well, I think there's a lot of things that are going to affect the trade.
Well, yeah. But just looking at that part alone.
Well, I think the fact that very few horse owners now have horsemanship.
Uh-huh.
Like the way horses are treated now has changed.
Yeah.
I think horses don't stand as good as they did before. They're not treated as good. People don't ride as much as they did before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are resorting to all these gimmicks and all these things to try to make the job easier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's nothing easy about it. So I think if the students need to get mentally stronger in order to be able to handle all the other aspects of the business that are not directly related to putting shoes on horses.
Yeah.
which is, okay, you're gonna get thrown around the bus. How are you gonna handle that? Like if you're in an area where people are just flip flop farriers all the time, right? How do you handle that? Okay, I guess I'm going. How do you handle that? What are you gonna do when you're showing a horse and it's just a spoiled horse that's just running around back and forth and giving you a hard time? Are you gonna blow up? Are you gonna,
Yeah.
are you, well, can you say no to this client? Can you educate this client? The client that wants to get educated, or it's a know-it-all client? So I don't think they understand, because at the school, you're protected, right?
Yeah.
They're protected. I mean, we try to push them to make sure that they understand client relations, and they gotta work. We try to teach efficiency, and then we instruct them. Okay, you got to look at this horse. Even though it's a school horse, like imagine this is your client's horse. You show up to the barn and you gotta shoe this horse.
Mm-hmm.
Start training like this was your account, right? That's what I did when I went to school. But nobody told me to do that. I just did it.
Yeah.
But they don't do it. So when you get how many kids we see that they graduate and then they stay around in your area,
Yeah.
and then the area just pushes them away, and it's not because they don't have the ability to shoe horses, it's just because they don't have they're just they just don't have the mental fortitude to handle all this unnecessary pressure that comes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would affect it. I think, if we don't do something, it's possible that there will be a shortage of farriers.
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you think there's going to be significantly, like once all these older guys retire, like the guys that are in their 40s, 50s right now, there's going to be
Why is that supposed to mean older?
Okay, well, like older and not old.
Oh, took it personal.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of farriers that like.
No, and then, well, there's that, but like I don't think, farriers. I mean, we shoe horses because we like to shoe horses, and I mean, a lot of farriers will shoe until they get older because they enjoy it. Some of them are financially prepared and planned ahead and stuff like that, But as you get better, you get pickier.
Mhm.
So somebody that's been shoeing horse for 40, 50 years, they're very selective.
Yeah, well, like as these people who are currently selective, or like in 10 years when they all start to become more selective, only do the really good horses, and like if they're financially prepared and don't really want to shoe anymore, as they kind of do you think the number of farriers is going to drop significantly, like in the next 10 to 20 years?
I think it's possible, because I think what happens is, I mean, there's a bunch of horseshoe schools right around, bunch of good ones. Yeah, we produce farriers, but the question is, are you shoeing horses for the next year and a half? Most of them will be, right? The good ones that start.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, are you shoeing horses for the next 5 to 10 years? Because that's usually when things take a turn, right? Because when you're the new guy in an area, everybody calls you. Everybody wants to try you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then if you don't work on your skills and stuff, then you reach a point where everybody's going to love you and everybody's going to hate you. And then you're going to normalize.
Yeah.
Problem is, can they get through the phase when everybody hates you?
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it's all good, right? The phone is ringing, and got a bunch of these horses that nobody wants to do, so they are not really in the circle. And then they start getting more calls, and eventually shoe a horse that's part of the circle of horse owners and people that talk. And then they mess up that horse, which everybody messes up a horse.
Yeah.
Right? So they mess up a horse. Now the word gets around that, all right, little Johnny sucks. Little Johnny. So now little Johnny start going down the hole like we all been. Like little Johnny climb out of the hole, or is little Jordan going to try to become an electrician?
Do you think the fact that most, or not most, but a lot of like good farriers aren't taking apprentices anymore is gonna
That's
affect it?
much of a headache. No offense to you guys.
Well, yeah, no, like I understand why they aren't. It's just, do you think that they're gonna affect that? That is gonna affect it too.
I think so, because that's how you get good experience, right? I mean, you get out of horseshoe school. If you're a good student, you have chances of being a good apprentice,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
But they, like, if they can't find apprenticeships and then they try by themselves and they have nowhere near enough knowledge.
yeah, and then they're just gonna have to learn through experience and trial and error and failing,
Mm-hmm.
and they're mentally strong to handle that.
Yeah.